start pulling this stuff up. That is weird. We need to figure that out.
I might call the village now.
You call it the village now. We'll get us an education.
It might just be the pain.
Yeah, I think that's a good question. Let's see. You don't really need this. I'm like, still it pulls us a little bit later. Hey guys, we're gonna get started in just a few minutes. Oh, it went in.
We're good.
So we fixed this problem.
We did.
Let's see if our audio is up and working. Okay. Turn the volume. Okay. Okay. You ready?
I'm ready.
Okay.
Let's go.
Hi guys, my name is McAllie Givens and I am the collections coordinator at the Old Baldy Foundation. I've been here for about 2 years in May, and I kind of took over some of Travis's roles when he left. I was the collections assistant beforehand. And with me today, I have our new educator.
Taking over for Travis, my name is Hunter Ingram, and this is my first virtual happy hour talk. Well, not happy hour, but our first history lesson online, and we're talking about a fun topic, and I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, so why don't you give a little bit of background of where you were before and how you came into this job?
Absolutely. So I come all the way from Wilmington, which isn't that far, but for the past 7 years, I worked for the newspaper in Wilmington, and for the past 5, I worked almost exclusively with the history of the area. So I wrote about the Cape Fear region. I had a podcast called Cape Fear on Earth where we talked about the area, did some stuff with Bald Head. And so now I'm out here as our educator doing our tours, working with McAllie on all of our history stuff and getting to really dig into the story of Old Baldy and Bald Head Island. So I'm really excited.
Yep, and you've got a couple of tours already too. So.
Yeah, we've already started.
Yeah, so we'll start those up as well. Make sure you check out our online website. You can sign up through Peak Pro. We do those Tuesdays, Fridays, and Saturdays, starting at 10:30, and they're already filling up. So I know we're 2 weeks out right now.
Yes, I think we had one day of next week, but every week that we've had them so far, they've been full before the week started. So yeah, I always tell people sign up well in advance, just because they are popular, and I am only one man. They will be entertaining, but I only have so many spots on the cart. So
yeah, so we are going to get started today. We are going to be talking about Frying Pan Shoals. We have some pictures to show, so we're going to be in the corner and we're going to do our presentation, and we're going to talk about the last lightship stationed out at Frying Pan Shoals and the tower that is currently out there but not in use anymore.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's get this party started.
And if you do take our tours, we talk extensively about Frying Pan because it is a driving feature of the development of this region and this island for the past hundreds of years.
Absolutely. So if you're not from around here or don't know much about the history of the Cape Fear region, this is a great map of Bald Head Island, and really the Smith Island complex in the Cape Fear region. And what you're seeing down here at the bottom is those Frying Pan Shoals, and they're about 30 miles off the coast, 32 to be exact, right?
32, I think, yeah. Frying Pan Tower is about 32 miles, and that typically is the tip, as people would say, just kind of on the edge of the shoals.
And there's semi-submerged sandbars that go out there, so they're hard to see, and that is why it is a portion of what is called the graveyard of the Atlantic, because so many ships wrecked out there over the years, because it's hard to navigate to get around. So we need navigational aids out there to assist.
Yeah, and smaller boats and vessels as they would go around the coast or try to get into the river or whatnot. Some of them would stay close to the coast so they could use the coastline to, keep sight of where they were. And so if you're doing that and you're passing by Bald Head and don't know much about what is right there off of the coast, you're more likely to run aground or hit some of these shallow spots. So it really was a treacherous part for a lot of these people who started to settle the area, started to explore the area all the way back to the 1600s, 1500s even. And even today, it's something that I'm very much warned about today.
Absolutely. You've got to be careful to get out there and get around it and everything. And they change a lot during hurricanes. The best thing is to go out there and look if you're at the Shoals Club or where Beach Access 39 is on the island. Go out there after a good hurricane and you can see how just the water, the sand environment is changing. And you can imagine that going 32 miles off the coast as well.
Yeah, and I think when I do the tours and we talk about it, the thing that I am even grappling with, just getting into the history of the island and having, I have a personal experience. We'll talk about a little bit about this tower and going out on Frypan Shoals, but it's hard to fathom when you're standing on the coast what 32 miles looks like. You cannot see 32 miles, even if you think you're looking that far. And so that's why it's such a real danger and why it's such a driving force of this area, because it's hard to fathom just how much 32 miles of danger is going to be, even in a place that looks so beautiful and just kind of looks like ocean water. And so it's sneaky.
It is sneaky. And you guys also leave some comments in the comment section. We're checking them out and we'll answer going through. But let's talk about the lightships. So it's a little confusing out there, but basically it was 9 different lightships have been placed out on Frypan Shoals from 1852 to 1964. And that's when it gets kind of confusing because people just think there was one lightship stationed out there one time and that was it. But it wasn't. That lightship technology changed in 100 years, and there was at least 9 different lightships stationed. So the one that a lot of people know about is the last one that was stationed out there, which is technically called Light Vessel 115, so Light Vessel 115. And the reason why the colloquial name of the ship was Frying Pan, but you can't have 9 Frying Pan lightships without having another name to them, so you can mixed up.
Sexier names for boats now. If you think about like the battleship, it was like BB55 or something like that. They're numbers until they get their names like this, and Frying Pan's a lot easier to remember. But,
it is, and they would paint the name of where it was going. So you'll see pictures of Diamond Shoals, and there was multiple lightships out there as well, etc. So people would know it when they saw it. So this is the last one that was stationed out there. And it was also the Coast Guard decided we're going to rename them all too at a certain point. And they also became known as WAL 537. So they renamed all their boats and lightships. So it even gets more confusing. So there's technically 3 names for one ship. So this lightship was commissioned and built in Charleston, South Carolina, and it was officially placed out on Frypan Shoals on July 15th, 1930. So I don't really know when exactly this photograph was taken, but this is the lightship being stationed out there. And you have to think about it. These people stayed out during hurricanes. They were stationed and they stood, and probably very nerve-wracking. I don't think I would make it.
It was a bumpy ride on the ferry yesterday. So if you think about being out there constantly at the mercy of the waves, you could be seasick.
Yes, absolutely. So it actually got moved during World War II. They put out a buoy out at Frying Pan because they needed those ships that the Coast Guard owned to go other places. So between 1942 and 1945, Light Vessel 115 ended up being stationed near the Panama Canal. And that was really cool. And what's really important about this is the man that's in these 2 photographs. So his name is Lieutenant Junior Grade Clarence Samuels, and he was a trailblazer for minorities as one of the first non-white commanding wartime officers of an American naval vessel. So it's really great. The Coast Guard has some wonderful articles about him. He's the one in the right in the photo of the 2 men, and this is another photograph of him. So he's a really big trailblazer for minorities during this time. And he ended up doing a couple other things. So they have great articles. I recommend checking them out. You can learn a little bit more about Clarence Samuels and everything. So after the war ended, Frying Pan Lightship, or Light Vessel 115, moved back to Frying Pan Shoals. And one of the former crewmen aboard the ship, Captain David Melvin, I love this quote from him. He said his experience aboard the ship ranged from sheer loneliness and boredom to all the excitement you could stand. And that's just a great example of like, you're just out there, you're bored, but then a hurricane comes.
Yeah.
And we do know there's some records of hurricanes pushing those lightships at least 14 miles from its stationed out there. So it's pretty scary.
Well, I have to imagine that being out there heightens the extremes of that. So you're going to feel the intense loneliness and boredom, but you're also going to feel the intensity of a hurricane or some type of choppy day or something like that. So it's not going to be that comfortable middle. You're going to feel the extremes of that spectrum.
Adrenaline rush.
Yeah, absolutely.
For sure. So like I said, it was stationed out there twice, and this is a really great picture because in 1964, they decided to take the lightship, Light Vessel 115, off its station, and they decided to replace it with a Texas tower. You know a little bit more about the Texas tower.
Yeah, so it looks, as you'll see in here, it almost looks like if you've ever thought of an oil rig. That is what it kind of looks like. It looks like that platform where it's going to have kind of a deck house around it. It's going to have those really sturdy steel legs. There just wasn't any oil capability to it. Yes. So that is why it takes it kind of a nod from something that you might have seen in the Gulf Coast off of Texas or something like that, but really strips it away so that it can serve that singular function, or not necessarily just singular, it had a few other functions, to kind of replace the Lightship, which over time, I imagine was tough to not only have men out there and be really at the mercy of the elements, but just time and cost-wise probably wasn't cost-effective as things start getting more automated, as things start getting more technologically advanced. I mean, we're moving into the late 1800s and early and mid 1900s with the tower. So yeah, the tower makes sense. Also, I will say I have been out to Frypan Tower, and I was a little worried when I went out there. I kind of thought that it would be like the ship where you kind of feel a wave and you feel it move, but those legs are driven so far into the floor right below, the under the water, that it is sturdy as a rock. You don't feel anything.
Well, that's good.
It is. I was worried. But yeah, so as McAllie was talking about that, the tower kind of replaces it. But the frying pan lightship has a whole legacy that happens after it leaves.
Absolutely. So when the Lightship leaves, it becomes a relief vessel. So relief vessels basically, and you saw these out at Frying Pan too, when that Lightship needed to be fixed or work needed to be done on that one, they would send out another vessel that would stay out there for a couple months or whenever it needed to get fixed. So that is what Light Vessel 115 went and did. And it was spent some time at Cape May in New Jersey before finally being decommissioned for good in 1967. So what happened to it then? Well, people decided they wanted to bring it back to Southport. And one of the big key leaders in doing all this is Mary Strickland. And she and a lot of other people in Southport wanted to make this into a museum, make it historical and interpretive. And I mean, I would love to have seen it as a museum. I think it's kind of cool.
It's like a historic site. I mean, it was placed where history was happening. And so it just happened to float.
Yeah. And there's a lot of great history during this time of it. But despite the extensive efforts to preserve and convert the vessel into a museum, the ship maintained severe structural issues, which caused it to lean and take on water and eventually sink. And it was just a lot of money to take care of it. And then what do you do once it's, underwater? That's even more money. So between 1982 and 1983, the city of Southport sold that Lightship to a man named Charles Herder Jr. He was a ship salvager and tug operator from Norfolk, Virginia. And basically part of the deal was he would take the ship and he would get it out of the water, and he took it up to, I cannot remember exactly, but he took it up north, basically. I'm gonna get the right name, let's see.
I don't want to lead you astray.
I don't want to lead you astray, because this video is it stinking yet again. So this is like a really cool theory. It goes up to Maryland for a little bit, and that is, that is where it's docked off Whitehaven, Maryland. And it unfortunately sank again. He did some work on it, but it obviously wasn't enough. There's a couple of stories of why it sank. You know, several speculations. One, he says people were taking stuff off the boat and it caused it to sink. There was damage. Other people said it got cold. I don't really understand how boats, I understand how boats sink, but you know, I don't know all the stuff about boats. So.
Well, I think all those men who were stationed on it over the years when it was at Frying Pan were really appreciative that it went through its sinking phase when they weren't on it 32 miles off.
Absolutely. So. Nobody was on the boat the 2 times it sank, and that is what really matters to the conversation. So finally, a guy from New York named John Creevy and his friends bought the boat in 1987 for $8,000, and they spent hours repairing it. So let's see. And this is what it looks like today. And they ended up making their way up to New York finally. And the Lightship became on the National Registry of Historic Places in 1999. Some really great photos. They applied for it. You can read the whole application. But the photographs over the years are phenomenal in that application, I have to say.
They were thorough. Yeah,
they were thorough, and there's some really great ones about it being in its different spots. So he took care of it, and he helped preserve it with his friends, and it is actually today in New York City at Pier 66A in Manhattan, and you can go out and have a drink on it and eat on it. It's got all of capabilities, basically. It's like a bar and restaurant.
And it's not sinking. It's sitting there. It's perfectly safe.
You're not going to, sink and fall underwater. But I really like how he describes, John describes the Lightship. He said, while the outside of the ship has been restored to her original appearance, the inside retains the barnacle-encrusted sunken ship motif that acknowledges her storied past. And I think that's just a really great way to describe I call it the Lightship of 9 lives. So I feel like it just keeps coming back to life in new adaptive ways. I hope it stays in this life for a little bit longer. I want to get to New York and see it.
We're just going to take a Old Baldy Foundation trip to New York.
I concur with
this. If we do that, we'll take you along.
We'll take you along with it all. So we're going to transition a little bit, and Hunter is going to spend a little bit more time. If you guys have any questions, please let us know in the comments, and we'll be glad to answer them for you. He's going to talk a little bit more about the tower, because you are the tower professional.
So we're going to jump back to 1964 and talk a little bit about the other kind of branch of history that happens there. So you saw the picture earlier of the Lightship sitting in front of the light station. And so that was in November of 1964 when they officially part ways. So as McAllie kind of took you down one branch of history. It follows the Lightship. I'm going to talk a little bit about the tower, because the tower, as a lot of you know, if you know this area, a lot of people love the Frying Pan Tower that is out there. And for one reason is because you could, for a long time, and still can in a few ways, interact with it. It was a bed and breakfast. It's now a volunteer preservation project. And so there's been people who have had the privilege to go out there, spend a night or a few, and get to know the tower, get to understand what it's like to be on the edge of the shoals and 32 miles off the coast. As McAllie alluded to, and as I mentioned earlier, I did get the opportunity to go out and spend the night on Frying Pan Tower in my previous job.
I'm jealous.
I understand. People describe it as a once-in-a-lifetime thing, and I completely agree, because you are out there very much separated by everything. The only thing you can see from the coast is at night you can see the light pollution from Wilmington. But as you get down the coast towards like Southport or Bald Head, it's complete darkness. And the night that I was out there, I only stayed one night. I laid on the helipad and looked up, and you can see the Milky Way.
Beautiful.
It's that kind of dark and peaceful. And it was a clear night. I got very lucky. It was supposed to rain, so I didn't bring any suntan lotion, and therefore I got a sunburn, but it was worth it. So
bald head got burned.
Exactly. So the bald head did get burned. But we'll jump back a little bit. There was efforts all the way back to the 1880s. There's a sketch that you can find through the U.S. Lighthouse Society that shows the proposed beacon that they were thinking about putting out there. It wasn't a full tower. It was a beacon that would be driven into the ocean floor right there and serve as kind of what the light tower would, but it wasn't fully capable. It didn't have the station on it where people could be out there with it. And so it never came to fruition. It wouldn't be until the 1960s. Once the war's over, the Lightship comes out there, and they are kind of reevaluating what they want to do with that, that they start working on the tower. And it is built, as I mentioned, it's kind of modeled after this Texas tower, but it's built in Louisiana. It's built in Morgan City, Louisiana, and it's built in pieces. The deck house is going to be the biggest part. It has 6 bedrooms in it. It sleeps multiple beds, so you can have up to 12, 15 people, I've seen estimates. There's plenty of room to move around. It's not crowded, but all of the bedrooms are named after lighthouses in North Carolina.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So if you walk in and you're walking down the hallways and walking past the bedrooms, on the floor, they all have name tags. One of them's Baldhead, one of them's Hatteras.
They got like Price's Creek or just the big one?
No, just the big one. Just the big one. Okay. There's only 6. So I think they ran out of bedrooms before they ran out of houses. But yeah, so they have the nod to what was that original kind of navigational tool of lighthouses in North Carolina. And I was telling McAllie, I like to tell people on the tours that as we do the tour and we talk about lighthouses on Baldhead Island, you can see that over time they move towards frying pan because they recognize, even more so as more people are coming to this area, just how dangerous frying pan can be. And if you're going to put the effort into bringing people and goods and everything into this area, you want to be safe about it. You don't want to lose your ship on frying pan shoals. So lighthouses, and then it makes sense then to see these efforts move out even to the water, to the shoals. And so this tower, as I mentioned, it cost about $2 million from what I've read, and it is a hulking kind of beast. I mean, you cannot see it from the water or from the coast if you're standing on it. Again, your eyes will deceive you. You can't see out that far, even though it feels like that little speck off the thing might be, off the horizon might be frying pan. It's not, I promise. In fact, we were looking at the horizon today and trying to discern what was off of it. But it is, the legs of the tower are very much driven into the water there. And I got a question from someone asking, how tall are those legs if you're out 32 miles in the ocean?
Oh,
well,
good one.
The answer to that is they're not as tall as you think. They are driven dozens of feet into that ocean water. Okay. But where Frying Pan Tower is, it's only about 50 feet deep.
Oh, okay.
So that shows you just how shallow it can get, even 32 miles off the coast. It's only about 50 feet. When you are standing on the top of Frying Pan Tower, you can look down and you can see the bottom of the ocean because it's such clear water there. Because it's kind of turquoise. It's really beautiful. And you'll see some of that in the pictures in a little bit. But I will say that before we move on, as we transition, I forgot to tell you guys that I was doing some research in Ethel Herring's book, Captain Charlie and the Lights of Lower Cape Fear. And there's a real good quote from my former employer when it was the Wilmington Morning Star in 1964. They were kind of bidding farewell to the Lightship, welcoming this new era of the light tower. And so there's a really good quote about kind of assuring people that what had been a constant presence out there for decades now was not going anywhere just because the ship was leaving and the tower was coming online. And so the quote is, "The Frying Pan Lightship was a familiar sight that will be seen no more, but whether it be from a shiny new offshore station or a time and weather-worn ship, seafarers will ever welcome a beacon in the dark and an eerie blast on a foggy night. Someone is waiting up to see them safely into port." And so that was the function of both of these things we're talking about. It was to get people safely around Baldhead, yes, but also Frying Pan shoals. And so there's definitely a symmetry there.
Beauty there. Yeah, absolutely.
To have them both out there. Now, I will say another one, Frying Pan Tower, it was put up in 1964, McAllie mentioned Diamond Shoals.
Yep.
Diamond Shoals got a tower only 2 years later,
Yep.
also taking a nod from the Texas tower kind of style.
Mm-hmm.
So they look very similar. I will say you recognize them differently because just like the ship, they also bore the frying pan thing. And if you go out to Frying Pan today, it still has those very rusted but very discernible letters hanging off the side. And people always are very interested about the tower and talking about how does it function. You know, you think about Baldhead. Baldhead was living off of generators in the 1970s, didn't get power until the 1980s. But you have everything you need out there.
You have everything. Yep.
There is a bunch of bedrooms. There is power. There's internet today. They have actually better internet than my apartment does. So it was kind of impressive. There's a kitchen. There's water tanks that were out there. So everything they needed to live. There is no air conditioning now, so that can make the bed and breakfast era or staying out there overnight particularly uncomfortable if you got the suntan like I did.
Yeah, July and August, don't think I'd be out there.
Yeah, and I did it in September. It was about 80 degrees, and at night I had a small fan. They give you small fans in the rooms, but I'm a hot sleeper, and so it's not I didn't sleep very well. But I will say I didn't sleep very well, but there was plenty to listen to, so the ambiance of being out there was quite nice. And there's a helipad, as I mentioned. There's a helipad right at the top. You'll see. Oh yeah, our picture of next. So this is the helipad where they would bring people out. Like as I mentioned, there's 6 bedrooms. They could sleep multiple people, but there was only about 6 people, maybe a few more that were manning it at the time. But it's only manned by people from 1964 to 1979 when it's automated. And so there's only a short life really in the grand scheme of things where this is really a station for people to be operating the tower. And you see the tower there, that's where the light would have been. And according to Ethel Herring, who wrote her book around 1967, that light particularly that was at Frying Pan could be seen 17 miles out.
Yep, that's about, yep.
That is adding that extra benefit of making sure there's a light seen that far out, because the Cape Fear Lighthouse on Baldhead was about 18 miles.
Cape Fear is about 18 and a half miles with its first order for now.
Exactly. So any light is going to help for real.
What I think I learned from you this week is that the tower, it didn't officially become Frying Pan Tower until people stopped kind of being there. Yeah, so as I was reading and understanding it, you know, we think about it as Frying Pan Tower now. That's succinct FPT, which is what it is. I mean, if you look it up online, it's the fptower.org. And I learned as I was reading that there was a real transition, or almost a kind of a rebranding of it, from the Frying Pan Shoals Light Station to seeing it referenced as the Frying Pan Tower. And it seems that the reason for that was because they start stripping away the station aspect of it. In 1979, as I mentioned, it becomes automated. So there's no need to have men out there with the exception of like an occasional maintenance visit. Yep. And so over time, it transitions from this light station to being this tower. And eventually it is decommissioned in a way. A weather buoy is put out there in 2003. It kind of functioned as a weather buoy in a way. It's kind of, you know, taking the temperature of the water that far off and the weather. And then in 2004, it's officially abandoned. It's so harsh, but it's true. It was not, there weren't people living out there. And when it was stripped away of its light station, you know, capabilities, they didn't take the deck house off. It was just empty bedrooms. Yeah. And so it does get retired starting in the 90s. And then again, in 2004, it is officially decommissioned and put up for sale as surplus. Surplus. So, and that's not an uncommon thing that the government does. It's actually how Cape Fear Light Station, Old Baldy, and what is technically Federal Road was surplus property in 1963. And that's how Frank Sherrill is able to acquire the entire island at that point. Yeah. So it's not an uncommon thing. You just don't think about somebody going to buy a tower or a lighthouse. I wouldn't think about people buying these. You wouldn't, but there is the man who owned or previously owned Frying Pan Tower. His name is Richard Neal. He is out of Charlotte. He's still very much the person that people interact with when it comes to Frying Pan Tower. And he actually did buy it. I got to speak with him when I was out on the tower.
telling me a little bit about his story. And he basically was looking on a federal surplus website, and where they put property up, he saw a light station or a light tower and was like, what is this? Why do I need it? But I want it. And
he got a good deal.
He got a great deal. He actually bought it for $85,000, which he was telling me that the government was very much not interested in selling it for that cheap.
Wow.
They wanted a lot more money for it, but there just wasn't, you know, taking on a light tower like this off of the coast, 32 miles, it's not just a responsibility, it's a hassle, like a good hassle, but you have to really put in the effort to not only get out there, but also you have to maintain it if you want it to stay standing. And so that's the function of it today. He has put a lot of time into it. And
it's not a bed and breakfast anymore,
it's
right?
Not. So
let's clarify that.
Yeah, so let's clarify that. So previously it was a bed and breakfast. That was how he not only brought people out there, but he spread the message of preservation. All the time that he's owned it, he's been working incrementally smaller projects to preserve it, because it is metal. So ocean air, time, just wear and tear, it's gonna, you know, really tear it down. It's deteriorating in a way. And so for a time, he functioned it as a bed and breakfast. I had a friend who went out there with her family and stayed. It was very popular. It got a lot of attention. And because of that, he's been able to cultivate a group of volunteers. And so it is no longer a bed and breakfast. It is a full-time preservation project. And Richard brings people out, and they all kind of tackle one project. So he'll bring people out who are good with welding, or people who are good with painting, or people who are good with something that the tower needs, and that he can kind of tap into their expertise and their craft to help, you know, prolong the life of this tower that was only expected to have a life expectancy of about 50 to 75 years. I mean, it wasn't meant to stand forever. But as most sites, as we've seen very much with Old Baldy, there is this desire to preserve them, to not let them kind of waste away, to really preserve their story and these physical spaces.
Absolutely.
And that's kind of where Frypan is today.
I think, and that's another thing is that, don't hold me to this, but I'm pretty sure Bald Head Island Conservancy goes out there for research purposes as well. And that's a big part of them, since they're using it as preservation, it's educational as well. They're able to educate, they're able to research, they're able to learn as well about the environment out there, animals out there. So I think that's really great that he's involved with them as well. But I think what everybody knows, and we'll be wrapping up, everybody kind of knows it as today, is when there's a hurricane coming, that is the camera that everybody's looking at with the flag blowing, and so we can kind of see what's happening. That is what it's known for, I think, today. That's what I knew it was.
Yeah, during Florence, it got national attention because he has an explore.org webcam, and they basically, he has a full stock of American flags, and they just stay up until they've battled enough wind. And during Florence, it became this almost, people saw it as a patriotic sign of the nation's perseverance. The flag kind of stayed through, and it ended up being sold off for, I think, $10,000. And the money went toward hurricane relief. And so, and McAllie's right, they do bring people out there. They have Boy Scout troops that go out there and learn about nature. And so there's plenty of opportunity for the light tower to still serve a function. And as I told you, it kind of has a folk status. It's kind of, they consider it like the world's most remote tree house, or like a weird thing where it has this really interesting tie to nature. It's been out there long enough. There's a reef that has formed around its base, and so that is protected. And so it's not about necessarily demolishing, but preserving all of that for the future. And so the Frypan legacy, both ship and tower, still live on. It
does, still lives on. You can visit both of them if you want to. That is what's kind of cool, that Bald Head Island, the Cape Fear region's history has expanded so far. I think that's really what's great about it, is you can learn about this history not even being here. But I think the best part about it is that you can, since that is an international water, this is what we were talking about this morning. I was like, oh, we can go gamble on there. He was talking about murder.
Yeah, I was
So
like,
this is like
that's the question I asked Richard. I was like, you know, what can you do, because you are out in international waters? Obviously, people do think it would be a great spot for a casino. You know, death, you know, suspicious death, it would be hard to prosecute something like that. But you know, they just want people to come out there and help preserve it. And so I don't think you have to worry about that. Just stay away from the edges. And then, yeah, it's got all things. The one thing I think they do use their international water status is fireworks. You can do fireworks off of the top of the helipad, so you don't have to worry about the police coming and knocking on your door.
No, there you go. And we want to give photo credits because not only is the website for the Frypan Lightship on here, the website for Frypan Tower and Frypan Tower Inc. is on here. Thank you, all of you guys, for having wonderful photographs that we borrowed for today. And we'll kind of end with a couple updates of what's going on. So May 19th is our next historic happy hour. It'll be in person. We've got Jim McKee, and I will let you tell us the topic.
Yeah, he's going to talk about the very colorful life of Benjamin Smith, who is one of the last Smith to own the Smith Island complex. He donated the land that would serve as the home of the first lighthouse. And so he has a very colorful history here on the island, but also in this whole region. And so Jim's going to talk about his life.
And I might be able to get some of the objects we have from our exhibit out, so you guys can see those. They're bigger documents. It's too big for display. They're pretty large, larger than that.
Right on really big paper.
Yeah, really, really big paper. So I will maybe be able to go out there and get those going, and it is free. Donations are appreciated. We have opened it up, I think, for you guys to get tickets.
Look on our website, under events.
Under events. And then we've got Treasures Weekend coming up the weekend of June 11th. It'll be a couple days. We're going to have a market. We're going to have some type of like history talk. And I don't know what else is going on, but we're going to have some other things going on that weekend as well. And you can go ahead and buy your tickets for the duck race this year. You can buy them online through our online store. It is $10 a duck, or when you buy 10, you get an 11th duck free. So you get 11 for $100. Either way, you have the opportunity to win $500 if your duck makes it down the river first. And that'll be going on National Lighthouse Weekend on August 7th. So that's kind of what the big updates going on right now. We would love to do more of these. So leave comments in the comment section to let us know what topics you guys would be interested in for us to research and present more information for you guys.
Yes, and if you have any questions about the Lightship or the tower, put them in the comments below. We'll keep an eye out, and if we can answer them, we'll be happy to. But I'm excited we did our first virtual history talk.
We did. We made it. I'm glad you're on the staff. We also have Christy that's in our gift shop. We've got some new staff, and you'll see us all out and about as the events start happening.
Come by and meet us newbies and take the tour. Travis did a great job with the tours, and it's been a great kind of learning experience. And I'm a colorful, I guess, tour guide. So
you're pretty entertaining. I think
it'll be fun. We'll have fun on the tour. So come take them and see us out at Baldy.
Bye, guys. Have a good one.
Bye.